of the Mi'kma'ki people. And we thank the Mi'kma'ki people of today for welcoming our ancestors, whether they came 4 years ago or 400 years ago, and sharing these beautiful lands in Pictou County with them. We are all treaty people. Now, we'll move on to approving our agenda. Moved and the seconder? Second. Moved and seconded. Are there any additions to the agenda that's printed in front of you? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carried. Are there any emergency resolutions this evening? And those require just majority vote now to handle them. Are there any emergency resolutions? Okay, I don't see any, so we'll move right along. And we have Heather Murphy with us tonight, and she's going to go over, as they did at the audit committee the other night or last week, a review of our consolidated financial statements up until March 31st, 2023. So it's not the March 31st just gone by, it's March 31st, 2023. Go right ahead then, Heather.
Thank you, Warden. So I will briefly go through the consolidated financial statements. I understand these have been distributed in advance. And as mentioned, we did go through these in detail with the audit committee. So we have been through this in depth already. It is my intent to stay more at the high level and do this as briefly as possible so you can get on with your other business at hand. So these are the consolidated financial statements for March 31st, 2023. Page 1 is the management's responsibility for the financial reporting. This report remains unchanged. So it does outline, of course, the responsibilities pertaining to these financial statements. Turning to page 2 is where the audit opinion begins, or our audit report begins. Our opinion, however, is rendered on the very first page of the audit report, of which I'll read our opinion. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements presents fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the county as at March 31st, 2023, and its results of operations and cash flows for the years then ended in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards. So the opinion does remain unchanged from last year. Turning to page 4 is the Consolidated Statement of Financial Position. This statement will report on all of those different funds that are being maintained and administered by the Municipality of the County of Pictou. Those funds would include your general operating fund, the water operating fund, the internet operating fund, and the capital funds for each of those as well. There are also various reserve funds that are being maintained as well. So page 4 is where we see all the consolidated results for those funds pertaining to the financial assets being held at March 31st, 2023, with your comparative of March 31st, 2022. The total financial assets held at March 31st were $18.7 million. The makeup of that is, of course, cash at $13.4 million. Taxes receivable, these are amounts due from residents. Amounts due from federal government, the makeup of those, of course, is mainly HST. Amounts due from provincial governments, and some other trade receivables. Financial liabilities at March 31st totaled $26.5 million. Included in those liabilities is a short-term debt financing component of $20.6 million, and most of that, or if not all of that financing, actually has to do with your internet project. The other amounts, of course, include some trade accounts payable, amounts that were deemed payable at March 31st, and an asset retirement obligation that is newly stated for March 31st that relates to one property. This lends to the net negative financial asset position of $7.8 million. The non-financial assets include the basic infrastructure or the capital assets of the county at March 31st. The combined capital is $72.3 million. There is some other investments in another project, the New Scotland Business Development Incorporated, and of course some small prepaid expenses. This brings the position at March 31st to $64.9 million surplus.
Any questions? You're willing to take questions as we go along,
Certainly.
Heather? If there are any questions, just put your hand up and we'll deal with them, but if not, we'll keep plowing ahead. I don't see any, so we'll plow ahead.
Page 5 is the Consolidated Statement of Financial Activities. This is going to report on the revenues generated and expenditures expended during the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2023, with both the budget comparison and to your prior year actual comparison. The total amount of revenue generated in 2023 was $23.1 million, most of which was raised in taxes, and of course those amounts part of the tax system that are collected on behalf of others, be it the school board, correctional services, and the regional housing authority. So net of those numbers, $16.6 million was raised from taxes. The other amounts raised both externally and internally, most significantly is some grants for capital purposes. Those grants include, of course, the Canada Communities Building Fund, previously referred to as the gas tax, as well as a grant for the internet project, for the from the Government of Canada, the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Fund. That equates to the 4.4, along with a provincial government for Sustainable Services Growth Fund. From the $23.1 million in revenue generated, $21.1 million was expended for, of course, the segments identified, with, again, this year's actuals with prior year comparatives. There are some overall general increases for most of the segments, so the total increase in the expenses were just approximately $2 million. The makeup of that overall increase is coming from a number of components, some of which is staffing, cost of correctional services, and just general cost of supplies and items that are generally increasing. This led to a surplus of $2 million that was realized, less, of course, the asset retirement that we are newly reporting on, and that relates to the one property that was required to be demolished. So this pertains to those costs for the demolition. Again, leading to the overall...
Councillor Turner. Go ahead, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Back on the revenue reporting, we have other revenue. There's nothing budgeted for it, but we have an actual of almost $400,000. Where did that money come from?
Sure. Almost all of that comes from interest on the reserve bank accounts. So it's typically, it's from the reserve funds, and those aren't typically a budgeted fund. So yeah, that's why you're always seeing that as basically.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Heather, under that cost of assets disposed, you said that was one property?
The cost of assets disposed, the 248,000, that's actually cost of looking at what does not have any value anymore to the county.
Okay.
What was sold, the proceeds, the 68,000, that was for two properties that were
That was
sold.
for two different properties that we
Yes.
had to demolish.
No, the property that was demolished is the 1.4 million in the asset retirement.
That's the school,
That's, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
No further questions, we'll move along. Go ahead, then, Heather.
Okay. Page 6 is the statement of changes in net financial assets. This reports on the changes within your capital assets, or the growth in those assets, or reduction, as it is this year, and mainly due to timing of financing. There was some acquisition of 14.2 million this year, 13 million of which all related to the internet project. So this did lend to a decrease in the net financial assets of 11.4 million. Page 7 is a consolidated statement of cash flow, and this indicates how cash resources are generated and used during the fiscal year. From the operating components, 5.4 million was generated. Some of that cash was used to purchase assets, and some of the cash was replenished by obtaining some financing, the 13.9. So there was an overall increase in the cash position of 5.3 million.
Yep, we're good.
Great. The subsequent schedules look at some of the funds in isolation. Page 8 is the general operating fund. It generated a surplus of approximately 12,000, of which, of course, is all transferred over to your operating reserve on an annual basis. Page 9, the water operating fund experienced a surplus of around 41,000. The general capital fund, of course, this just reports on how the capital is acquired, for which component, and how it was financed. And for the general capital fund, it's all financed from internal sources. Page 11, the water capital. Again, all of those additions were all funded from internal sources. Page 12 shows what resources are owned by the Water Capital Fund. Page 13 is the Internet Operating and Capital Fund. So the Internet Operating Fund did experience a deficit of approximately 337,000. And the bottom of the page does reflect the capital additions and how those were funded. And those were funded from both external, the grants, and some financing. Page 14 is a schedule of those reserves, again included in your consolidated pieces. The list of those reserves are on the bottom of the pages. That, of course, the Canada Community Building Fund, that was previously referred to as gas tax, holds significant resources, as does the General Operating Reserve. And these typically are funding other components or other funds. Page 15 is your consolidated statement of property and equipment. Again, the general capital, internet capital, and water capital funds, and all of those accumulated amounts. And page 15, again, brings you to the same consolidated municipal position of 64.9 million. The notes to the financial statements, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are accounting policies that describe how the numbers were arrived at. Page 21 is some explanatory information in terms of what's included in those taxes receivable, those amounts outstanding from residents, as well as the bottom of that, page 21 as well. Page 22, you do have an obligation to set aside some valuation allowances for expectation of perhaps some that aren't collected. So that provides some description on those, as well as your pension plans and those restricted tax sale surpluses that are being held. Page 23, note 7, does describe the components of each of the area rates and whether each of those area rates are reporting on an accumulated or a balance of net pluses or minuses for those amounts collected and paid for those services or rates. Description of those contributions to other boards and commissions. Page 24 speaks to some commitments that the Municipality of County of Pictou has outstanding with other boards and authorities at March 31st. Also on page 24 is a description of the short-term debt that is being held at March 31st, the interest rate that's borne on that financing, and the amount of interest that has been occurred on that financing since it's been in place. Page 25 is the description of what is being realized for amortization for some of the different segments, a description of the investment that the county currently has with the investment in New Scotland Business Development Corporation. And also on page 25 is the obligatory disclosure around the remuneration. And the last page to the notes, of course, is relating to amounts that were provided for a loan to the Riverton Guest Home, commonly referred to the Valley View Villa, that has been fully repaid. A description of that asset retirement obligation that again is a new disclosure requirement for this fiscal year end. The remaining pages are fairly detailed in terms of what traces back to some of the figures that we've already reviewed. So it's my intent to stop there.
Okay, thank you much, Heather, and we'll now open it up for further questions. If any councillors have any questions for Heather at this time on our statements up to March 31st, 2023. Are there any questions for Heather? Go ahead, Councillor Dave Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you were at the Audit Committee last week, these should not be a surprise to you. The first one, which I always ask because I want it to be part of the public record, during your efforts to audit our books, did you find any evidence of misuse or misappropriation of funds?
Through our auditing procedures, there was no evidence of either misappropriation or fraud occurring.
And the second one, in the previous document I had last week, I saw a list there, I think it was in italics, of the municipality's policy for collecting unpaid taxes. I couldn't seem to find it in this document, but it may be there. My question then and now is the Municipality of Pictou following its own policy for the collection of unpaid taxes?
Through the procedures that we carried out, we found that there wasn't evidence to support that those were being followed.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any further questions for Heather on our financial statements? Go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the notes you gave us last week, Heather, you identified a control deficiency relating to the Internet Fund, and it was noted during the audit that an annual budget was not prepared, and you strongly recommend that an annual budget process be implemented. Will we be implementing that in the coming year then, 2024? Or would that was from 23, so I guess 25, I'm not sure
Right.
what year that would be implemented if
Yes.
possible.
Yeah. That's an internally prepared budget.
Okay, so perhaps I can direct it to our CAO.
Brian, do you want to try that one?
Sure. Yes, we will prepare a budget that reflects for the internet project.
Okay, good,
As
thank
part
you.
of our general upcoming budget.
Okay, very good, thank you. And just thing I want to remind everyone again that this is for the year March 31st, 2023, which really should have been into the province by September. So we still haven't met our dates for submitting our finances, but hopefully we've got a few things being implemented that we can get a better handle on it next year. It probably still won't be September, but hopefully it will be sooner than March. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for Heather on the financial statements? Go ahead, Deputy Warden Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just on the internet project, I think that we very well aware that it's well scrutinized. I think there's 7 people that look at all the invoices that come in, including I'm one of them. And I think there's 3 or 4 in and plus outside people, so it is well scrutinized. I don't want to lead somebody astray saying that it's not, which it will. It certainly is.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Thompson?
On the internet, we had showed revenue of $8,400 last year. I guess we were late getting on. I think we were supposed to get customers a couple of years ago, but on page 13, I think it is where you reviewed those numbers. I think it was page 13.
Yep, it is page 13.
There's a monthly charge or operating costs there of like $300 and something thousand, $375,000. Is that what it's going to cost every year, or is there going to be more added to this? Like, I forget where's that at? 345. I guess 345 last year. It was 99,000. This year it's 345,604. And we didn't really even have a draft. We didn't have a budget figure in for last year, but is that number going to go up or down? Like, is that the final, like, I guess, and I've mentioned this, and I'll make comment on this. This has been set up as a company, basically. We've set up a business, but we don't have a set of books, and I have a hard time following it. So I'm not understanding what this business looks like. We got an $8,400 revenue from last year and $345,000 in internet expenses. Is that like the charges to Bell or Rogers and Eastlink and all these other internet exchanges? What are all these charges for?
Okay,
And I guess the other question is, $8,400. When did we start collecting that money, and how many customers is that?
and you do have to remember this was March 31st of 23 when these figures came in, a year and a bit ago, almost a year. Go ahead then, Brian.
Yeah, so the revenue is based on, it's probably a few months, and would not be a large number of customers by any stretch of the imagination. So that was probably a few fiber customers, I would say, as the wireless came on right around that time. So it's a very small segment. The bulk of the charges are disclosed in one of the notes.
34?
24, I guess, the monthly fees. So we are spending $26,000 a month. And that's just base charges to have internet service. In essence, that's the connection to the internet outside of Pictou County. So that's the base amounts. The 384 will go up as we expand, type thing. So the level of activity will tie to the expenditure as well, so.
Here. On the internet revenue, that 8,434, is that a combination of both fiber and wireless?
I would say it's probably more fiber customers.
Is that how we're going to report it? We're not going to break it out as into wireless? I thought there were two different entities altogether. I'm a little confused on that.
Yeah, this is kind of I guess a consolidated number that could be broken down into the two segments. And we'll do that for the budgeting purpose this year.
Are we going to get monthly reports on sales and expenses? Is that something that we can follow from month to month? Are we able to do that now with a set of books for this business?
Yes, we should be able to start reporting on the levels.
Because right now, I can't follow this. It doesn't make any sense. It's like first in sales, you need numbers, and we're not getting the information. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions for Heather on this report? Okay, seeing none, we need a motion to approve the statements. Moved by Councillor Wadden, seconded by Councillor McKeel. And there was no questions before, so I don't think there will be now. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carried. Thank you very much, Heather, for a job well done. And thank you to our staff as well for a job well done.
Yes, I know we're very intrusive when we come, but I do appreciate Karen's help through this audit. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move along to our minutes from our March meeting. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections from the minutes of our March meeting? Any errors, omissions, or corrections? One last time. Any errors, omissions, or corrections to our March minutes? Okay, seeing none or hearing none, we'll declare those statements official as presented. And under correspondence, we have one piece of correspondence, letter regarding the spring bear hunt. Does anybody have any comments on that letter regarding the spring bear hunt? I believe that's the one from Mr. Rood. Okay, seeing no comments on that, we'll move right along. And our next item of business, we're very pleased to tonight to recognize, especially when we're recognizing one where one of our councillors is heavily involved. So at this point in the evening, we're going to pay special recognition to the Lismore Wintertime Revue. And the MOPC would like to congratulate the Lismore Wintertime Revue on its 25th anniversary. The foundation for what would become this annual show began in 1998 with a group of dedicated volunteers who produced a one-act play entitled A Great Day for the Irish. That play was an immediate hit and the start of what we now know as the Lismore Wintertime Revue. Tickets for the shows consistently sell out ahead of time, which goes to show just how popular and well done this event is. None of it would be possible without the dedication of all those involved. We congratulate everyone who has been involved throughout the years and thank them for the talent and time they've given to their community. And so I want to thank you, especially Councillor Butler, and I know that there's many more that are a part of your show. but it is quite a feat to just to keep going for 25 years, but to keep selling out for 25 years too is even better. So do we have a plaque there? Councillor Butler, if you want to come up. Be sure to pass along to all the members, I know you will in your community, so how proud we are of them.
Concerning alignment in our community center and we share it with the entire community. Thank you.
So next on our agenda tonight, I'd like to welcome Wade Thibault here from the Pictou County Partnership. Wade is, he's been here before a few times, but this is first time, I believe, as head honcho, we'll call it. He took over from Scott Ferguson back around Christmas time, and so we thought it was important at our meetings that you know, Scott get out to talk to councils so that when people ask councillors, you know, well, what are those folks doing? What are they up to? Or, I don't know what they're doing. Well, he'll tell us where they're located at and what they're doing. So the floor is yours, Scott.
Wait.
On?
Is it on? Yep. Okay. Yeah, so thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to come and present tonight a little bit about the partnership, some highlights from our previous year, and then some highlights from our plan for this fiscal year. As the warden said, I took over the role of CEO back on an interim basis back in December, and then was permanently placed in the role late January. And I joined the partnership team back in July of 2022, and am excited to maintain the momentum that we have as an economic development agency here in Pictou County, and seizing the opportunities that are before us. So next slide, please. So some of the highlights from last year in supporting businesses and entrepreneurs. Some of the workshops that we held throughout the year include workshops around succession planning and transition, particularly around growing your business and setting the business up for transition. So we had multiple, about 20 businesses involved in their Elevate Business Value workshop, which allowed them to take a deep dive into their business to determine what it may be valued at today, what they need it to be valued at in order to kind of hit their retirement goals, and a plan for growth to reach that if there were any gaps in that. We also had other workshops, including getting ready for tax time for sole proprietors. We had one on artificial intelligence, the basics, you know, ChatGPT, for small businesses on how that they can utilize that, and that it's not you know, things that are very foreign and complicated to understand, and how to really use that in a day-to-day basis. Social media and branding as well. 3 programs that we launched last year that we've had great success with would include our side hustle program and side hustle coaching program. So that was an initiative that we started in August of last year, and a combination of webinar starter kits and then one-on-one 10-week coaching cohorts where our staff were trained and coach participants in this program to start and grow their side hustles. What we found was that now entering its 4th cohort that just started a few weeks ago, between the webinars that we've held and the participants in the coaching program, we've reached nearly 100 entrepreneurs in the county who are interested in stepping into entrepreneurship. And we also find that with starting on the side, that the chances of a business succeeding and growing that way versus maybe quitting your full-time job and signing a lease on a brick and mortar location, the success rate in the long term is much higher. We also found that we had a lot of, the majority of the participants of this program were females, and in our first cohort, a quarter of the participants were Indigenous. We also launched our Elevate program, which saw 8 businesses enter that program in this first initial year, and the whole intent of that program was to identify barriers to growth and then have a plan to overcome that. We also started our Newcomer Business Navigation Program, which is funded by the province's Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration. And we've now had 17 newcomers in our first year enter that program to start businesses here. We held joint networking events with groups like the Chamber and CBDC Noble, Ignite, and others. And one that I want to highlight just most recently was in conjunction with FACE, which is the Federation of African Canadian Economics, and Tribe, which are 2 organizations based in Halifax that support Black entrepreneurs, and we invited them down to Pictou County to help reach rural entrepreneurs, and it always helps to get some of these organizations outside of the city. And then we also took an initiative in December of last year where we partnered with Build Nova Scotia, and they have what they call a pop can on the Halifax waterfront, which is essentially a shipping container that they've converted into a small retail shop. And so we were able to use that space during their Evergreen Festival on the waterfront. And the partnership did a call for expressions of interest in anyone who was interested to participate for small local makers and producers. And we invited them to drop off their priced products or promotional material if it was not a physical product that they offered. And we took the product and promotional material, set up the shop. Our team staffed the pop can for the week, and then we brought back all of the revenue for the producers that participated. And it was a great initiative for the businesses that participated, but also for just the publicity for the county being on the waterfront. We had a lot of people come in and tell us their stories about their connections to the county. Maybe it was their friends or themselves and their families. So that was a nice way to kind of end the holiday season. Next slide. In supporting immigration and community integration of newcomers, we continued our customized support for employers through our immigration programs, including a couple of tools, our Immigration Ready Employer Handbook, and creating inclusive and welcoming workplaces. We continued our outreach and education with our employer forum in partnership with iSANS and Nova Scotia Career Connections. We held our Coffee and Conversations event where we had a guest speaker on welcoming workplaces. We also did a diversity, equity, and inclusion workshop held at Ignite specifically for community leaders, which was very well attended, and representation from this municipal unit was there. We also had our Digital Nomad webinar series, which started through conversations with another organization based out of Ontario that was working on a program to promote working remotely abroad outside of Canada for Canadians. And I asked if we could reverse that and look at doing a promotion where we, for others who are outside of Canada to come here and work remotely. And so we did that as a way to thinking that we may promote the county as an area to come and work for, maybe the summer or what have you, a bit of a tourism initiative. And what we quickly found out was there were a lot of people that were registering for this workshop that were saying they were leaving whatever city or country they were living in, and they were looking for a new place to call home. So we had participants from every province across the country except for Newfoundland, and we had participants from 9 other countries outside of Canada. And so that was an opportunity to share a bit about the county and our quality of life here and the opportunities that exist. And then we followed up with an Immigration 101 webinar for those who are outside of the country, because we identified that as a need from that initial webinar. And happy to say that we have connected a couple of participants from that to employers and other opportunities. And one participant from Toronto is moving here in the next couple of weeks to work in marketing. So we also did a volunteer lunch and learn to help volunteer organizations in the community with learning more about DEI and the value to welcome newcomers into nonprofit and community groups as potential volunteers. It's a great way to actually integrate people in the community as well, so that they can meet people and have a sense of purpose, maybe even for those who may not have a job offer, but they're a spouse of someone who did have a job offer here and are now living here. We also held a social event, winter skating event at the Wellness Center, and we developed some resources for newcomers on, things to expect in their new home and some things that may be expected as far as, the renting process and cleanliness, that kind of stuff, and housekeeping. And then we participated in the Destination Canada Labour Mobility Forum with the province of Nova Scotia, and Becky Cowan, our Director of Immigration and Community Integration. This was the second year of us attending that event in Paris, France, and Rabat, Morocco. And as a result, we took a number of occupations that are in high demand in our county and posted that to receive applications for those in-demand occupations, and we received 5,000 applications. So now the team is going through and translating those so that we can have some talent pools already designated as we work with employers, and everything from pharmacists to skilled trades. One final area I want to highlight from the past year is that we were the host Regional Enterprise Network this year to host the Regional Enterprise Network Conference, Partners for Progress. So we held this event at the end of November, and it was a great success. We do have a bit of a report following that conference, and if you haven't seen it yet, happy to share that with you. Some highlights include we had over the 3 days, over 250 participants from across the province and guest speakers from across the country. And we had an estimated economic impact to the county for that conference was spent between accommodations and local businesses and caterers, about $85,000. Next. I just want to touch briefly on the expanding mandate of economic development and all of, these are not all of, but just some of the factors that play into the work that we do on a daily basis, and barriers to growth. And, you may think of housing and transportation, but even things like childcare as a barrier to economic growth. And, it's not necessarily our responsibility to open up and operate daycares by any means, but it's something that we're mindful of. And if there's ways that we can connect businesses and nonprofit groups or what have you into looking at solutions for childcare, then that's the role that we can play as that kind of hub of collaboration. I know of many families that, I know right now that there's hundreds of families on wait lists for childcare. It's an issue in our healthcare sector as we recruit healthcare professionals. And I know of multiple families since I moved here that have reached out to me and my family to see if we could help them find childcare because they were supposed to start at Michelin on a Monday, and this is a Sunday, and they're still looking for childcare. So those are all different factors that play into economic development, and we keep them top of mind through all of the initiatives that we do. This page will be circulated in our business plan, which which will be posted on our website if it's not already. And it just highlights a number of groups and organizations in our community that we work with, and it kind of highlights how we work with those groups and what core aspect of our organization. So next slide. And now just a quick breakdown of our funding sources. So just showing the core municipal contribution of $250,000 from all the municipal units and Pictou Landing First Nation in our county. The core funding from the Department of Economic Development. And then in the green, you'll see it is multi-year funding broken down into provincial from a couple of different departments, but mainly labor, skills, and immigration. Our federal multi-year funding that we receive through Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, and then other, which comes from ACOA, the Connector Program, and a couple of other organizations. On the provincial side, so the purple is more project funding specifically for this coming year, and we did receive some provincial project money through the Office of Healthcare Recruitment Professionals in partnership with Healthy Pictou County, and a federal project from the CAN Export Community Investment Fund, which will help us hire a consultant and an intern to do an asset inventory of the county and develop a basic FDI strategy for the county. So highlighting what our strengths and weaknesses and opportunities are as a region, as well as our value proposition, and the 3 to 4 sectors that we should be focused on attracting to the county. And then some other smaller project funding. One example being the Canada Ocean Literacy Coalition received a small grant to do some work in the high schools with our partner Career Connections on opportunities in the ocean economy. Next slide. So supporting business growth and sustainability, obviously still one of our core pillars as an organization. And what we will intend to do this year is to continue to support the business community in accessing government resources and programming, building the value of their businesses, launching new ventures, being prepared for transitions, expand into out-of-province markets, embrace technology and enhance productivity, and create sustainable revenue streams. Yep, that's great. So strengthening sectors for investment and attraction. I just mentioned the federal funding that we received for the project for this year, and then continue work on the further development of aquaculture, the bioeconomy, and the renewable energy sectors, enhancing our collaboration with Invest Nova Scotia, and effectively responding to inquiries for business attraction and expansion. So next. Supporting workforce and population growth, another key pillar. So supporting businesses with navigating the immigration programs, both provincial and federal, as a workforce development tool, and supporting businesses with becoming immigration ready, embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, and developing onboarding programs to support more inclusive and welcoming workplaces. We'll also support newcomers with understanding their rights and responsibilities in the workplace and experiencing an inclusive and welcoming community to increase the retention rates of newcomers to our region. An example being matching newcomers with community volunteers and organizations through our Community Connections program. So next. Obviously, all of this work is important, and so we need to communicate it as well and partner with, and not duplicate, but partner with the other organizations that are in this ecosystem. So we will continue to develop more inclusive and representational initiatives through a gender-based analysis plus process. We will spotlight the successes, resilience, and innovative spirit that define our county. activate collaborative initiatives across the regional enterprise networks across the province, enhance public awareness of our organization and its role in our community, and then streamline economic development efforts in the region and identify and support synergies with Invest Nova Scotia, Build Nova Scotia, and ACOA. And next. And ensuring a stable, long-term economic development organization is key to communities to contribute to the economic well-being, and we will continue to play the role of the hub of community economic development and collaboration. We'll continue to source funding from diverse sources and enhance stakeholder communication and engagement. And a couple of key highlights that I'd like to highlight within the county. Connected with 49 businesses this year and worked with 49 businesses specifically in this municipality. I wanted to highlight the Meadows Creative Retreat, which was a participant in our Elevate program, and the aquaculture development area and the work that we did in partnership with Dalhousie University and the Aquaculture Association of Nova Scotia. So we conducted that survey within the county to determine, to get gauge a level of public acceptance to further develop the aquaculture sector in our community. The shellfish and marine plant, I should be specific around that. And there is a report, and I'd be happy to come back and present to council and detail the findings of some of that work. And Dalhousie was very happy with that work. And of all the communities that they've worked with and surveyed, Pictou County was the most receptive and accepting to developing the shellfish and marine plant aquaculture sector. So there'll be more on that in the year to come. And I just, obviously I love the opportunity to come here and present to council, but I would also encourage you to keep in touch with us. We're on all of those major social media sites. We still continue to send quarterly reports, which we will be posting on our website now as well. And we do have a bi-weekly newsletter, and I would encourage you to do that. And obviously, our LOC is our main form of communication to council. So I know the warden is well aware of what we do. But anyways, so happy to, I'm also available at any point for anyone. We'll have coffee or whatever you wish. Happy to talk about if there's businesses or organizations in your communities that you think we can support, just let me know. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Wade. You covered a lot of stuff, and I know every day is busy. You got a lot going on, so but that's good. That's what we want to have happening. I remember a few years ago we had the Municipal Economic Working Group, and some of the members some of the councillors tonight were on that group, and trying to find what way might help to increase employment. Good employment, I guess we're looking for in this county, and it eventually led to the REN, which is morphed into the partnership, Pictou County Partnership. But I think it's really important what that work is being done, and we often talked around the table here about wouldn't it be nice to catch a big fish, and a big fish being equivalent to a Michelin. But we all know that there's very few big fish out there, and a whole lot of people hoping to get one. But if we do our work that you folks at the partnership are doing now, some of those little minnows will grow into some pretty good sized fish. And that's the whole thing. You're cultivating it by starting people slowly so they don't end up getting defeated because they went too fast, but you're letting them get started at their own pace, let's say. So I did want to mention I attended the conference, or some of it, last November, was it? Yep. And so I was there the whole first day, and I had some other things to do the next day, but I did drive in, especially for one piece that was to do with agriculture and the fishery and the forestry, and it was excellent. They had 3 women from across the province, and that's something you wouldn't have seen 25 years ago for those resource industries. They had 3 women representing them, and they were very forward-looking. They were looking there. You could look at forestry and say, well, maybe that's going downhill because of all the Fiona stuff and everything, but they were, I forget the lady's name that did that, but she was very forward-looking, and there was a lady from the valley, I forget names, and terrible, but she was the former head of the NSFM, So she was speaking on behalf of tree farmers or fruit growers in the valley, and then there was somebody, just local here, Ferguson, Amy, was there representing the fishery. So it was quite something to have these three youngish ladies that were, representing those industries and did a real good job of it. But that conference was probably one of the best ones that I've been at, and I think it was seen by other RENs across the province as one of the best ones that there's ever been in this province. So credit to you and your staff for that, Wade. So do we have questions for Wade this evening? Councillor Dave Parker, go ahead.
Thank you, Wade, for your presentation. We've met before.
We have.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
One's more or less the inverse of the other. In your experience with startup businesses, if you could name the single greatest obstacle for businesses getting started. I realize that's generalized.
Yeah. I think based on our data from working with businesses in the county, the entrepreneurs would say that accessing capital and navigating that process is the biggest barrier to getting started. It's very overwhelming when you're trying to get started and figure out, what resources are out there for you. Many people, I'm sure in your own lives, you'll hear, well, there's lots of money for this, so there's lots of money out there for that. And that's not entirely false, but we have to try to start changing the mindset, and we can play that role of helping people navigate the resources that are out there and finding the capital that they need. But we also need to continue fostering this growth and cultivating this growth mindset, and that you can fund yourself and stop chasing grants and things that maybe don't exist and start chasing revenue. So, taking that approach right to the basics with our side hustle coaching program and having that minimum viable offer to get out there and start testing the market and developing a product or a service that there's a market for is key. And so I would say, from their perspective, that's what they would say. I would say after, being in this space in the community for a couple of years, that really some planning and having a good, strong support system is just as big of a barrier to growth than finding the actual capital in the first place.
If I may,
Go ahead.
the flip side of that question, I guess we're referring to Pictou County in particular. What is, in your opinion, our greatest asset or advantage to helping businesses get started?
So the biggest advantage is to kind of echo what I did just say around having that support system. The fact that there are organizations like the partnership here in the community that can help support people, that we can help navigate them, that if it's us who can't support them, that we can help navigate them and introduce them to maybe it's CBDC Noble, maybe finding that source for the initial capital is what they need. Maybe it's getting connected into the chamber community and the membership around the chamber and advocating for, maybe it's around some red tape reduction. Maybe it's getting connected with an organization or a business based out of Halifax. One example for a business that came to the county, we did a focus group with a number of individuals from various different backgrounds. And we did that focus group in Halifax because we wanted to get the business outside of the county. They're involved in the virtual reality space, and we helped get feedback from those participants in that focus group around what they needed from that pitch in order to say yes to take it to that next step and be committed as a customer for that service. So, which that wouldn't have happened without an organization that was there to support them.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you, Wade, for your presentation. Appreciate it. My question is in line with Councillor Parker's second question, And there was one thing that really struck, there were actually two things that struck me in the presentation. One is about the value proposition of Pictou County. And it wasn't really defined there. It says you had identified a value proposition, but what would you consider if you were going to define a value proposition for the county, if you were selling the county to somebody that's not familiar with it? What would the values be, and what would the value proposition be? What would you consider it to be?
Yeah, so that when I was talking about...
That's a big question.
Yeah, and you know, short answer is never a good answer, but it depends on the audience, for sure, as to what that value proposition is. If we're talking about attracting a specific business in a new sector that we're trying to grow in the county, the value proposition will be different than trying to attract a newcomer from Paris to come and work at one of our employers. May be different than from a healthcare recruitment perspective. Generally speaking, the county, our location, our central location is huge. Obviously, our quality of life is, I would say, the number one aspect. The fact that we have grown as a county, not just through immigration, but we've had less people leaving the county for Halifax. We've had less people leaving the county for other areas of Nova Scotia. In fact, we've had a net positive in that effect, and people coming from other areas of the province too here and within Canada. And part of that is our quality of life. The fact that you can, be finished work around 4:30, 5 o'clock and shut the laptop and be at a world-class beach in 10 minutes. That's unparalleled. And in that, I mentioned the Digital Nomad webinar, and we had a panel of folks who live and work and run businesses here on a panel so that people on the webinar could ask questions about what it was like to live here. Those were definitely aspects. The other piece was support, specifically around the business community perspective. This was an opinion from someone who moved their business here from Halifax. And the fact that the community does support and wants people to succeed, and that's key. I mean, we can attract people here, but now it's retaining people, and that's where we're focusing a lot of our work too, as we look at population growth, is not just attracting folks, but making sure that they feel like this place is home and that they don't want to leave.
Go ahead, Larry.
And you had another slide as well that was on funding, and you had a return on investment for every dollar spent. It seems so there's like $4.3 returned or something like that. Could you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah. I guess what I had that there was just to show that, the $1 that in order, the basis of the RENs is that the municipalities need to participate in this. And so, the $1, if you break it down, the $1 that the municipalities in our county invest in the partnership, we're able to turn that into an overall budget of $4.33. But without that, we could not access those other funds and do that work. So we wouldn't be able to access funding to have that newcomer entrepreneurship program. We wouldn't be able to access funding to do the foreign direct investment strategy and that work. So having those core funds is crucial to growing a sustainable organization moving forward, and just recognizing the impact and obviously sharing our appreciation that the municipalities are committed to the organization and growing the region. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Any other questions or comments for Wade tonight? Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. My question is just to ask if how much communication is there between your RENs and neighboring RENs?
Yep, so we meet regularly. So all of the REN CEOs meet as well as the Department of Economic Development on a monthly basis. And then individually, obviously more than that. And this year we will be working with the province on changing the contribution agreement from the province. They did do a tools review about a year and a half ago of the economic development tools for the province. The outcomes of that tool review, specifically around the RENs, So one of the key, the Department of Economic Development has 4 pillars, one of them being community focus. And meeting with the deputy last week, he shared that the RENs are that pillar, and that over the next year we will be working with the province, for more longer term funding. They see that as a need, because having that consistency and stability is crucial. And B, more funding tied to more consistent delivery, obviously with the regional needs met. So we will be working more collaboratively with the REN networks across the province. And I would give an example or a couple of examples of what could come of that. But like the Valley Regional Enterprise Network is working on projects around technology and agriculture. And so the thought being that if they can work on that project and perfect that program into something that can be scalable across the province, great. Test that, refine it. When it's ready, we're here. Similarly, in Cape Breton, they have a position that is solely working on developing the creative economy in Cape Breton. And so the conversations I've had with them since stepping into this role is, next year, when I hear that you've got Disney and Netflix and these major companies coming to Cape Breton to look at sites to film, pick up the phone and ask me if they can come to Pictou County and see a couple of sites. So that's there's work to be done around the RENs working more collaboratively for sure, and it's a priority of mine. I know now moving forward, as well as the departments.
Okay, any further questions this evening for Wade? I'm not seeing any, so I'll thank you, Wade, for the presentation again tonight, and we look forward to having you back to talk to us about the shellfish opportunities.
Yes, I'd love to come back
because
to
that's
the
something we've
present
talked
that.
about around this table many times, and it just hasn't quite got to the top of the list yet, so we'll keep that in mind and see if we can set up a date for that. So again, thanks for coming.
No, thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Business not requiring action. There was a report in your package from Frankie McFarland at New Scotland Business Park in Glasgow, or it's in the county actually, on the border with Glasgow. Are there any questions on that report from New Scotland? Not seeing any. So we'll move right along then to the business items or items requiring action. And the first one is Deputy Warden Murray with the high school bursary and graduation expenses. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Resolution, be it resolved by the Municipal Council of the Municipality of County of Pictou that will approve the following high school graduation bursary grants from 24-25 operating budget. North Nova Education Center, $2,000. Northumberland Regional High School, $2,000. Pictou Academy, $200, and Tatmagos High School of $200. They're all for graduation expenses and bursaries. Dated Pictou, Nova Scotia, the 2nd day of April, 2024. I so move this resolution, and seconded by Councillor Palmer.
So seconded.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the high school bursary and graduation expenses resolution. And it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions on that resolution? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carried. So we'll move right down. Councillor Palmer, you're on for the recreation sponsorship grants.
Thank you, Warden. Resolution, be it resolved by the Municipal Council for the Municipality of the County of Pictou that it approves the following recreation sponsorship grants. First one is CCREC Regional Science Fair for $1,000 for sponsorship of the fair March 27th, 2024. The second one is for PC Crushers U15AA, $250 for hosting the provincials from March 28th to 31st, 2024. Dated Pictou, Nova Scotia, the 2nd day of April 2024, moved by myself, Councillor Rainey Palmer, and seconded by Deputy Warden Wayne Murray.
So second.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the resolution to do with the recreation grants, and it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions on that resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Against, motion carried. Now we're on the Community Connectivity Grant. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved by the Municipal Council for the Municipality of the County of Pictou that it approved the following Community Connectivity Fund grant. Little Harbor Community Center, $1,500 for the District 2 school year-end party, dated at Pictou, Nova Scotia, this second day of April 2024. Signed by myself, Councillor Deborah Wadden, and seconded by Councillor Larry Turner.
Okay, moved and seconded, the Community Connectivity Grant in District 2. Are there any questions on that resolution? Okay, all those in favor? Against? Motion carried. And Councillor Wadden, you're up again to do with the letter regarding the lack of spare bus driver.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for letting me put this on the agenda. The past while, I've noticed that quite a few buses are being canceled when they don't have a spare bus driver. And this week they had 3 that were canceled. And some of these buses travel to the P8 schools as well as the high school. So there's 2 runs. So there's 2 groups of children not getting to school, which I think is a concern, especially they're not canceled till early in the morning, and the parents aren't aware. They can't make other alternative measures to get the kids to school. Sometimes they just don't have that ability. So I really do think that it's not fair. I know my own grandson, his bus didn't run for 3 days earlier this year, and it does cause a lot of problems with the scheduling. So I really do think that we do pay, the school board was $5 million on our financial report tonight. I really do think we should have a say in that. So I think, I know before they used to do their own driver training, and because the lack of spare drivers, I think, is what the problem is. But now I guess they have to go to truck driving school and they pay their own expenses to do that, and it is quite expensive. And then you look at the fact they may not even get hired by the school board. I mean, they're doing this in their own dime. And if they do get hired, it's for a part-time job that they really can't give them set hours, and they can't tell them where they'll be working from and this sort of thing. So I think that's a concern, because I can understand people not putting that kind of money out when they don't really have a job to go to. So in any case, I think, I don't know, look at retraining their own drivers perhaps, or other alternatives, but try to do something with the spare truck drivers. And I don't think it's just in this county. I think it's a provincial problem. So I really would like to see a letter written to the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development, Becky Druin, as well as the Chignecto Central Regional Centre for Education, and I'm thinking possibly Karen Cooling and or Blair McDonald, and whoever else could receive this letter, that urging them to relook at the hiring practices for spare school bus drivers, and encouraging them to realize the stress of no school bus at all is causing many concerns for many families in our county. I make that a motion.
Okay, that's a motion, and we need a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Dave Parker. And we'll open it up for discussion, but I would like to say that this is becoming a very big issue in this county. I know several people the last few days that have called me and said, you know, what's wrong here? Because it used to be, you know, you just heard the kids say they had a spare bus driver that day. But as we know, it's hard to fill a lot of jobs anymore. There's just not the people around. But anyway, I'm going to open it up for discussion. Whose hand did I see first? Larry's? No? Mary? Oh, sorry. There was somebody along there. Yeah.
So with this been happening since a while, I've been asked a lot of questions, so I kind of have the information. I just don't know what to do with it. I agree the issue is of great importance, and I completely understand the stress and the frustration that the situation has on families, caregivers, staff, students, and the added stress on the drivers is apparent. And the regular everyday reasons drivers are unavailable is a long list. There's long-term illness, there's appointments, there's personal issues, and student behavior is one of them. Drivers took a drastic hit in COVID. A lot of the retired drivers that were driving decided they're not coming back. They're putting their health first. And it also turns out that long-term bus drivers are retiring. We have our people retiring because they've been driving since 30 years. And the challenges faced by new drivers, sometimes a new trained driver will drive and find out this career is not for them. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It's a hard job, but it's gratifying as well. And This issue's been increasing over the years, that's correct what the warden said, and it's a major one. We're short bus drivers, mechanics, teachers, cafeteria workers, the list goes on and on and on. The Education Act states, bus transportation is a privilege, not a right. I didn't know that, I just found it out. It's in the budget and they have it. So at any given time, possibly they could renege and take it away. I'm not sure really how that works. I just know it's a certain amount for each student that's allotted. And the CCRCE decided that the training being offered at the base was taken away. It was in the province, and the reason for that is the criteria for being a trainer is limited and has changed drastically. And the trainers who were once with us have all retired and they haven't been replaced. The shortage of the drivers across the board is from Yarmouth to Sydney. Debbie spoke right, Councillor Wadden's correct. It's not a small issue. And the centre is talking with the province and they're working on the issue and the jobs are being advertised, there's signage on the vehicles of the centre, and it's a good incentive to train at the Commercial College in Debert. So the other side of the coin is, it's a cost share. If you take the course all by yourself and you're not with the board, it's $4,000. If you sign up with the centre, there's a discount and they pay you. They pay you $440 a week. And it's 3 weeks of training and it's 8-hour days. Then, if you pass successfully, you can sign a contract with the board after completing the course, and you will be obligated to 2,000 hours or 4 years of commitment. If you leave and the obligation is not fulfilled, you're responsible to pay back the amount that's owing on the cost that covered the course. And the course also covers first aid, air brake certificate, and 105 hours of training. When we were with our original trainers, that was not included. It was just the training, so you got the basics. Going ahead, backing up, and working off the lights of the bus, and some safety aspects. So there's a lot at the Commercial College that's covered. And as a councillor, I'm hearing from those concerned at all levels, and as a bus driver, I'm feeling that stress as well. And I'm unsure at this point where to go to get the answer to correct the problem. And I'm not sure sending a letter to the people who already know that the problem exists is going to help. I agree with Debbie 100%. We got a problem and it needs to be fixed. Maybe, if it's possible, we as a municipality should show our support and encouragement by sharing the CCRCE site, and I keep repeating that repetitively because I want to say the word board, but it's not. It's a center now. And I think that there's an urgent need for bus drivers in our Celtic family, which is right here, and we need to get the word out. And sometimes it makes sense to try and help our own by standing and working with them and showing our support to fix this right here. So I would like the municipality to work with the communications officer to repost the CCRCE request for bus drivers so that we can get the word out locally here and get our drivers back in the seats. It's a good job and it's a hard job, but we need those people to come and help us. Our students are suffering, our bus drivers are suffering, our supervisors and all those above. It's affecting everybody and all our families, and I think we need to get the word out there that there's support for somebody who wants to take the training, and it's there, and how it works. They need to know how it works. No one can quit a job with benefits and no pay and go someplace to train and have nothing, and that's not the case. People need to understand that it's available, so I'm asking for the municipality to stand by us and support us and put that on their site, please and thanks.
Thank you much for all that information, Councillor Elliott. Are there any other comments, questions on the serious issue? I agree it's very serious to do with not just bus drivers, as Mary said. Bus drivers, what we notice, because the buses can come today. But you might not notice at the cafeteria, if you're not there, that they're short by 2. Go ahead, Councillor Dave Parker.
I'm a former employee of that just school board when I was there. And I believe we have another long-term employee across the way from me. This is not specific to bus drivers, although it's much more noticeable when the bus doesn't come. But they've been suffering now for a number of years. It's gotten more and more acute. I hear an ad on the radio, and I think they list 9 or 10 different job titles: early childhood educators, librarians, administrative assistants, bus drivers, et cetera, et cetera. substitute teachers. This is a symptom in our society where we don't have enough people to cover the jobs that we have. Okay, but we need to do a better job of enticing. There are, and traditionally the last number of years, there's been a fair number of retired people, semi-retired people who decide, oh, I'll drive a bus for a few hours a day. And that's helped some. But I think of one guy in particular that I know well, and he had done it, he was a retired policeman, and he'd done it for a number of years, and then recently, within the last 6 months, he hurt his shoulder, and he can no longer do it. So there's one more struck off the list. And that's happening in many jobs. The concept of using our retired people to work until they're 70 or 75 is not a bad one. However, if that's already being done, there's no more to gain there. If somebody turns 60 and retires and takes on bus driving or whatever, there's somebody in the other end that dropped off because they're 75 or more. So there's no net gain in that process, but hopefully we can keep it going. But I agree with Mary's thoughtful and passionate explanation that we need to do a better job of promoting what these jobs are and some of the advantages of them, and we need to do a better job. We shouldn't penalize someone, expect them to pay $4,000 to take a course, so they might get a job. But anyway, and this ripples right through our whole society. There's just no longer enough people to do many of the jobs that need to be done. So I certainly support, and I don't know who you send a letter to, I really don't. We can send a letter to Becky Druin, we're just reinforcing what they already know.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Dewar.
Thank you. There's not one thing that those three previous councillors said that wasn't true, but some of the problem has nothing to do with the bus drivers, the teachers. It's the provincial government, the way they set up the Education Act. There's something in the Education Act now that everybody deserves an education no matter how they behave, okay? So the bus drivers, the teachers' aides, the teachers, they're just so tired of no consequences. And I'm one of them. Like, I mean, why fill out a paper? Nothing's going to get done, okay? And that's going on everywhere. It just, oh yeah, Johnny will be better tomorrow. Oh, Johnny never gets better tomorrow, not very often. But anyway, I remember when there was different principals. Holy mighty, Randy knows. Anybody went to East Pictou one time, if they acted like they do today at East Pictou, there'd be more holes in that old building from somebody getting chucked out. But that's not the way it is anymore. For years and years and years lately, there was no consequences, so we got a monster built, and now we can't control it. Okay, and that's not everybody. But I know there's a wonderful bus driver came here, and he did the best he could. And he got a better run or another run, and everything went to pieces on him, and now he's off on stress. And there's all kinds of things like that all the time. I think the only reason I'm existing for 45 years is because I'm hauling grandchildren to some of the people, and I know exactly how they're going to act, because it's the same back years ago now, right? It's the same kids, they pass it down. And I got wonderful, wonderful parents and wonderful kids. But it's... Yeah, Johnny. But, oh no, I haven't got Johnny. That's why I use that name. But it's... I don't know who was smart enough or can see outside the box good enough to fix the problem. And just like Mary said a few minutes ago, they could say tomorrow, well, we can't get people, we're not going to do this anymore. And I'm some glad I'm at this end of driving and not starting, because I wouldn't have lasted, because I opened the door different times and they're gone, right? But they don't hold that against you today. They'll laugh and say, do you remember when you kicked me off? Yeah, I remember when I kicked you off, and I remember why I kicked you off. But that's a thing of the past, right? Because that poor kid now, if you kicked him off, he'd be standing out on the shoulder of the road on his telephone, and a snowplow would run him over because he wouldn't hear it or see it coming, right? So you got to look after the kids too. But the problem isn't with the people that we're talking about. The problem is up higher, and I think the letter to the Minister of Education or the Premier or somebody, those are the people that got to get the message. And if you listen to the teachers union, why they call this strike vote, it's the same thing we're talking about right here, about can't get people, can't do anything. So the problem, we're just getting advertised more at this end because the kids aren't getting to school. But I just couldn't let them talk about it and me not talk about it. And when
No.
she says somebody there for 30 years, holy mighty, they're only a kid. I had 15 years in then. But thank you, and I think the problem we have to work on the problem from the top, because the bottom has been worked on since 15 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chester, and we're blessed to have two longtime bus drivers in the room here that know what the real world's like every day, and it has changed a lot. At one time, you had to work to get a job as a spare bus driver or whatever, because we had all kinds of farmers around that helped them, their income a little, and some fishermen and whatnot, but now that's changed a lot, and there's not that. It's the same as a lot of occupations. There's not that big bucket full there that you never worry about running out, because you never did run out, you know. But anyway, we're in a different world now for sure, but we have a motion to send this letter which expresses our concern. It's not us that's going to fix it. We're not, that's not our purpose here, but our purpose is to highlight it to, as Chester said, up higher. So they're obviously hearing from people too. It's not just councillors hearing, the provincial people are hearing, I'm sure, but whether they have any answers or not, but at least they hear from us, they know that it's a concern in Pictou County too. So is there any other comments before we go ahead, Councillor Turner?
Yeah, I think that we should include in the motion as well, that we include Mary's request that the information go on our website as well.
On our website, yeah.
So it's not only the letter that goes, but that we include that.
Highlight the need, yeah. I
Thank
think that's a good idea. And did you have another comment, David?
Yeah, I have no problem adding that to the motion too, but just when I put this together, it was because of the school bus, and lack of the drivers and the runs being canceled that had some of the concerns raised to me. So that's why I directed it just at, I know there's other issues with the school board or just with the school system, but I think we can't address everything at once. I think, we have to pick our battles, and I think this is an important one because it is affecting the people that we represent here. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll call a vote for this one then, of sending that letter and putting it on our website about the need for the drivers and whatnot, the advertisement. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carried. Okay, now we flip the page and we get consideration of deferred business. And this is the letter of support asked for by the Glasgow Farmers Market. I think we've had already 2 meetings on this one, so I know this one is a bit controversial and there's different opinions around the table, and that's good. But I ask everybody to, because this one it draws out a bit more emotion maybe, I ask everybody to be respectful of each other in their comments and respectful of the public out there. But we do need to make a decision tonight, and that's what this is about. So they've asked for a letter of support for their new construction, new barn they call it, I think, and it has a price tag on it of $7.1 million. Now, some of that is contingency and whatnot, but so that's the core of it, is they want a letter of support for that. They don't want any money, but if we give a letter of support, then you can most likely expect that somebody will be back looking for money in most cases. But so we need to decide whether to send that letter of support or not. I've already commented enough on this. Probably I'm going to leave my comments for now and go around the table and see where we're at, and then maybe I'll make them at the end. So who would like to start off on comments on the letter of support for the Glasgow Farmers Market new build project? Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
I'll make a motion that we write a letter of support to, in support of the project of the farmer's market.
Okay, moved and seconded then that we send that letter of support, and I believe there's a copy of it that came in our package. So that is the letter you're referring to.
Well, yeah, we can tailor it to our municipality, but I'll just make a couple comments on this. I'm a little puzzled as to why we're the last lone holdout on this project. We've never had this much debate around a project that would be providing public good to the community. When we agreed to fund the community hub in Pictou, there was no hesitation. I'm just puzzled as to why the farmers market on the east side of Pictou County doesn't get the same appreciation as the community hub in Pictou. This is a good project. They're far away from breaking ground on it. It's early on in the process, and they deserve our support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Elliott.
That's good. So I said before that the farmers market is very unique because it's seasonal, and because of that, it works. And this is a huge project for something that presently exists on a much smaller seasonal scale. And there's no question that those who present it and those represented will benefit. I'm not against any farmers market or the need to support local. I agree with that 100%. My concern would be if the individuals that showed the letters of support, if they had the details shared with them of the full design and the cost of $7.1 million as we did, so that they're aware of how huge this project is. The problem does not lie with supporting the letter for the New Glasgow Farmers Market, but the concern for obligation or commitment of financial help down the road bothers me. I have a concern for that. This project will not benefit all the residents and could very well end up being a large financial request from the municipality in the future. And in fact, when expanding, overhead costs go up, and that increases everything to maintain a business-like market that's no longer seasonal. Will the operating costs be too much? In closing, I'd like to make a motion of support for the letter, Raise the Barn project. I have no problem with that, but I want it with no obligation or commitment financially from the municipality to be added in there somewhere, so that, yes, we support it and we wish them well, everybody involved, and that it goes off and it works. But at this point in time, I don't want to make any financial commitment with the taxpayers' dollars towards this project by supporting the letter. So I wanted that added on if possible. Thanks.
In order to do that, Councillor Elliott, you'd have to move for an amendment to
So
the
I'll move for an
motion.
amendment then, if Councillor Thompson would accept that to be added.
I think we need a mover and a seconder for that amendment.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's moved and seconded that we add the clause that there be no money from this municipality go into that project?
No, we're not
No,
going to
okay.
financially commit
Financially, you come
or
up
be
with the words.
obligated unless it comes back to a discussion so that we can talk about it. Just because we support the project and we support the letter, I don't want that to mean that down the road they can turn around and say, okay, everybody that supported the letter is going to pay this %, or everybody that supported the letter is obligated to put money in.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Larry, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, so I simply don't think the two should be commingled whatsoever. I mean, what Councillor Elliott is doing is commingling the issues. What we have to do is vote specifically on the motion that was given to us by Councillor Thompson. The council has no obligation whatsoever when a letter support financially. There's nothing in there about finances, nothing. So if it comes back to us and they say, we want, $50,000, The council at the time will say no, or will say yes. But those two things should not be commingled. They're separate issues altogether.
Go ahead,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Elliott.
I just want to ask one question. In the past, has council ever supported something that where that support came back and we were financially obligated without having a say?
We judged on its merits.
Never.
No, I don't, the amendment to the motion, I don't agree with.
Yeah, we'll decide in a minute here if the amendment stays on the floor or not, but go ahead, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councillor Turner. These are two separate issues, but we've already shown our support for this project with $45,000. So we're already committed to them that we think it's a good idea, obviously, or we wouldn't have spent the $45,000 for it. So I really don't like to see both issues. This is just a letter of recommendation. If you checked your emails today, I know I sent a number of emails out to everyone with the letters of support, and these are county residents that are vendors in a lot of cases, and there's some residences. But I was amazed that the 5 towns have all committed their support. And the chamber, the partnership, it goes on and on. The Wellness
Yeah.
Center are all, it's just a letter of support. They're not going to go back and get money from some of these groups. So I think we really have to look at the issue as just a letter of support. I still liken this project to the library, the hub. I mean, 7-9 years ago, we kind of scoffed at the idea that we could build something that well, and you saw it last week. It's going to be an amazing piece of Pictou County. And I think the same thing can happen with this farmers market. It's a chance to grow and expand our county. But that's kind of a side issue. The important thing right now is that I don't think the money issue should be linked to this. This is just a letter of support for the project. Thank you.
Okay, but Mary has made a motion and it's been seconded. But she made a motion to amend.
put a motion on the floor,
But she made a motion to amend.
and I don't agree with the amendment.
Doesn't matter, though, it has to be voted up or down here.
It's contrary amendment, what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, which is permitted, but it has to be voted on first, then yours.
Yeah, the amendment has to be voted on, you know, and despite whether we think you should tie the money to it or not, you know, when the proposal came, it had a price of 7.1 million somewhere in that proposal that we originally got from them. Whether we want to tie it together or not is another matter, but, you know, there is a price tag on what they had. And it was a lower price tag at one time, but then after COVID and everything happened, they had to get new numbers. But so if there's no more comment, or do you want to make comment, Deputy Warden?
Just for clarification, I know it doesn't say it, and I'm fully aware and agree with the letter, but there's no indication of any money in there. So it puts you in a hard spot, because I don't agree with the $7.1 million. So are we voting on the $7.1 million when we do this, or are we not?
No.
Okay. Is that guaranteed? No.
One point of order, can I get some clarification on something? I want to understand, I put a motion on the floor, and typically when the mover and the seconder don't agree with the amendment, it doesn't.
I don't think that's the case. Now, if somebody makes an amendment, if it was a friendly amendment and the mover and seconder agreed, then I think you're right. But I don't think you're right that on this case, you can make an amendment that doesn't agree and not agreed to by the mover and seconder, and the council has to decide. They voted up or down.
This runs afoul of the motion, totally afoul of the motion. We're not talking about a financial commitment. We are not talking about a financial commitment. We're talking about a letter of support for a future project.
Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
If the letter of support is all we're worried about, and we are not obligated to financial down the road, then there should be no issue. You want the letter to be supported, it will be supported, with the amendment of the municipality is not on the future of any obligations or commitment for financial obligation unless we discuss it or want to contribute.
So go ahead, Randy.
Just on that, we're they're just asking for a letter of support. Has nothing to do, in order to get financial support from this council, they'd have to apply to our grants committee for the normal process to receive funding. Like, there's no obligation for us to give any amount of money. As far as the $7.1 million, yeah, it is a lot of money. But I remember when the library and the cost center came here, theirs was $7 million, and now I heard it's 12 or 14 million. So costs keep rising as projects don't get off the ground. They're not asking for any financial support. Always the letter of support. We give them a letter of support. If they come in the future, it'll be up to this council. It probably won't be this council, it'll be the next council that will have to make a decision whether they're going to support the amount requested or give them less or more. So I think we're going around in circles here.
But we do have an amendment.
I
now.
agree.
I think we have to vote on that amendment. It's moved and seconded. No matter whether you agree with it or disagree with it, we could argue all night over that. But if there's, go ahead, Peter, sorry.
I would just like to ask the question of why a councillor is yelling across the room to around and sort of telling us what can and can't be done without addressing the chair. I mean, we all address the chair when we want to ask a question or tell something. So, I mean, this is ridiculous. If you want to ask a question, good, be recognized and ask it. But don't yell across the floor because you don't like the what you're hearing. This is totally on wrong.
Okay, if there's no more hands, then we'll have a vote on the amendment, which is, you stated it fairly well, I think, Mary. I'm not going to try to repeat it, but financial obligation. All those in favor of the amendment? Six. So there's six, that's a tie, so that amendment is defeated. Okay, back to the main motion. Does anybody have any comments on the main motion? Councillor Dave Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I am a long-time supporter of farmers markets. I've been to more than a dozen of them, from Ontario, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. They're wonderful places to go on a Saturday morning. They have fresh produce, crafts. If you've ever been to the one in St. Jacobs, they have almost everything you need to survive in life. And this one is a good one. The one in Glasgow is modern, clean, a good diversity of vendors. It's well run, okay? So in that part of me, I'm torn because I am in favor of supporting the New Glasgow Farmers Market. What I am not in favor is supporting this particular proposal. And I think I'm clear that they're two very different things. We had a presentation here from the director, which I thought was not particularly professional. There were several questions that were asked that she just sloughed off. Like, one of the ones I'm concerned about is that we have a building that's 10 or 12 years old. They claim that it's beyond its useful economic life. I'm not sure what that means. I asked that and I didn't get an answer. I went and specifically looked at the building. The only thing that might need work is the tarp. Well, if you've ever had a tarp dome building, you know they're good for 10 or 12 years. But you don't throw out the building because it needs a new tarp. And that's where they're at right now. Yes, they would like to have a lovely, new, large, heated building. Who wouldn't? I believe their proposal, not the concept, but the particular proposal they're pushing of $7.1 million to completely tear down the dome and add much more infrastructure, is just beyond what they're capable of this time. I don't want to see happen to the New Glasgow Farmers Market what happened to the Seaport Farmers Market, where they overextended themselves and were no longer viable. I'd rather see them grow more gradually. Grabbing for the brass ring, which is way up there, and there's no way I can jump to get it at this time, is beyond them. 7.1 million is a very, very, very large ask for something that operates half a day a week. That's why I don't think we should send them a letter of support. We should send them a letter saying, bring us back another proposal that's more conservative, that more fits with what is doable. Now, maybe we can pull this off, maybe, but maybe we can't too. What we're saying to the other levels of government, provincial and federal, who are listed down there as major contributors, is that we support this particular proposal. And I cannot support the particular proposal. I think it's too grandiose and too expensive. I think they need to grow more gradually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Butler.
Mr. Chair, for the past 10 or 15 years, I have been a vendor at the Antigonish Market, and we've gone through the process of constructing a new building. It's a building that we all feel very proud of, and it serves our needs very well. It does not have the amenities that have been described in the proposal here in Pictou County. So I guess maybe you could say that they stuck with the support of the farmers market itself and provided a beautiful facility, but they didn't go the route of putting out all the additional amenities, and probably the building ended up costing half of what is proposed here in Pictou County. So I also want to go on record as being a strong supporter of farmers markets, and but I have some problems swallowing the large project that we're being asked to vote on.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. So I'd like to get very literal on this. In terms of the letter per se, it's very generic. It simply says that it's bustling every week. It supports 150 small businesses, showcase their goods. It offers a place for neighbors and friends to gather and socialize, local food. A new year-round space would allow the market to increase capacity, which it would in the shoulder seasons. This is what they're asking in this letter. And it just says, we endorse the initiative. That's simply what they're asking for, anticipating a thriving future where the market increases their support to a small business, fosters partnerships, and enriches our community. And if there's anybody, councillor in here, that doesn't agree with that sentiment, then I think they're looking at it from the wrong perspective. This is simply an ask to support. Now, we don't have to get into the details of whether it's $10 million or $7 million or $2 million. Those are all things that will come to council. Our next council is probably, as Councillor Palmer said, to be decided then. So like I said earlier, these two things should not be commingled. They should be, each one will be voted on their merits. The merit of this ask is, to me, is a worthwhile pursuit. The merit of the financial ask, the council may decide against it, or the council may decide for it. But those are two distinct questions that have to be answered. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor McKeel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Respectfully, I think that they are not so separate issues, because the first sentence says to replace their current seasonal structure with a year-round space. And the presentation that came here wasn't, it was a specific, I don't want to say ask, it was a specific building with plans and a dollar amount and everything else. So while it's obvious that everybody around the table here supports farmers markets, and we all support our residents that vend and sell there, and we support, we all enjoy going and spending time with our families and supporting local. Of course we all do. And so, yes, we do support that. But the problem lies in, for me, and I've heard from residents, I've received phone calls on this myself as councillor, is that it's the same sentiment that I share, that yes, we definitely support the farmers market, we support the vendors, we support everybody wanting to go, it's local food, all crafts, et cetera, et cetera. But we did receive a presentation on a building proposal. And whether it's that building that gets built or another, that was the building that was proposed to us here. Okay? So that's what we have to go off of. And to me, I feel that it is a very large building that while it does support the farmers market, it is a much grander project than that. And I feel that there are many ways to support the farmers market with a new building that wouldn't necessarily need that price tag for other space, for weddings and et cetera, et cetera. So I guess that's where my head is at. And residents that I've spoke to have similar sentiments as myself. It truly is not that we're not supporting the farmers market. I want to make that very, very clear. We obviously are. But it's this particular proposal that was given to us here at council, and the size of this, it's a big endeavor, and unfortunately or fortunately, that's what we have to go off of and make our decision off of. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Go ahead. Maybe?
Well, I definitely support sending a letter of support for this project. And again, it's a project, we don't know where they're going to get them. They're going to be applying for money. These letters of support help them with their grant requests. And they're going to be going through a long process of applying for grants and so on and so forth. I read through all those letters today that we received, and I was really impressed with all of them, right from the vendors, the people that are customers there, Sean Fraser, our own wellness center. They see it as a step in the right direction for this county. The presentation that they did the night they were here showed the enthusiasm from both Christy and Michelle. And you need people like that to make plans work for the county. Again, I keep comparing this to the hub because I see the very same type of enthusiasm from the people that are trying to put this project together. And I think that what I see with the hub, I see can happen with the farmers market, and it's the potential and what it can do for our county. And again, it's trying to grow things in this county. We had the partnership, Wade Thibault here tonight, and we heard the comments he was making about how they try to bring people in and get things done. Well, this is what this group is doing. They're trying to get something good to come to Pictou County. So I don't see how showing our support for the project is going to cost us $7 million. I think we're missing the whole concept of what they want the support for. They want the support for moving ahead with a new building at the farmers market. So I really think we're overthinking this. I think it's just a simple letter of support. We've done it for many projects in this county before. All 5 towns are supporting it. So, and they were given the presentation at the mayors and wardens, I believe, were they not, Mr. Chair? They were all made aware of the project.
It was presented first there and
yeah,
then
at the mayors and wardens. So they are aware of this particular cost, and but they're supporting the project itself, and I think that's all they're asking for from us. So I think we'll be doing them a great injustice if over 20% of the vendors are from the county, that we don't show that this council supports that project. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, myself, as Councillor Keel said, and Councillor Elliott and them, I agree with them, and also in Councillor Butler. It's they want, the way she talked the other night here, that they want to have, where they can have other functions added too as well through the year. Well, we got little community halls that turn around and depend on trying to get a little revenue too. It just seems like if New Glasgow sees something, they want it, and when they want something, they got their hand out to the county. And, you know, and right now it's a letter, tomorrow it's going to be for thousands of dollars that, you know, our people could use. So I really, really can't support it, and I support farmers markets like everybody else. It's great. I even think we should have one of our own in the county. I mean, that's something we should be looking at, but no, I can't support them putting out that kind of money.
Okay, is there any counselor who hasn't had an opportunity to speak yet? Counselor Palmer?
Just on that, it's not the Glasgow farmers, the Glasgow doesn't own the farmers market, right?
It's a society.
It's a society, and it was going to be called Pictou County Farmers Market, but that name was taken apparently, so they came up with Glasgow. So it's not the town of Glasgow. That's, if you think you don't want to support town of Glasgow, it has nothing to do with town of Glasgow. It has to do with the association.
Okay, did you have a say yet, Deputy Warden?
No, but I will if you want me to.
Well, yeah, I just want to give everybody one chance, otherwise we could be here all night.
Yeah, I'm in support of the farmers market, there's no question, but when the 7.1 million is tied to it, I talked to vendors that are in District 5 today and some yesterday, and they're all for it, but not at the 7.1, because it costs them more money and it got more money out of their pocket. They feel that yes, they need a new building, something better, something warmer, but not to the tune of 7.1. And at 2.1 million was it for outside work. It's just too much. So the people in District 5 that use that as vendors that go there, they're not for the big money. It's just too much. Pictou County cannot afford that right now. Thank you.
Okay, and if everybody's had an opportunity, I'll give my 2 cents worth. I've thought long and hard about this because like everybody else said, farmers markets are a good thing. Some of them are held in old barns, some of them are held in old apple stations, some of them are held in new buildings, as Dawn mentioned in Antigonish. But my concern is for the future of that farmers market. If they get in too deep, I know the first, and the manager mentioned the other night, yes, we will have to put the rates up. My estimation is the rates would probably have to double to have any chance of paying the operating costs. That's got nothing to do with the initial cost. So I don't think, respectfully to the others that mentioned about the price, to me, when somebody makes your presentation with a price tag tied to it and all of what's going to be involved and everything, that's what I'm supporting. I'm supporting, if I sign a letter of support, it's not just a general letter saying we like farmers markets. I think we're supporting that which was presented to us and presented to the mayors and wardens, which was very specific as to size and all the different aspects of it. So that is real. I don't think we can ignore that and think we're just signing a letter of support for farmers markets. The future of that farmers market could be at risk if we get in too deep. There's only so many people to support it, and those vendors can very quickly decide not to show up anymore. I hope they don't, but I suggested to the manager on 2 different occasions that perhaps we could do all the things she's looking for: more kitchen space, place for offices and music playing and everything, for far less money. They've got one building there now that's winterized. You could build another one even double that size and still be under $2 million. There's something, she said, well, you can't use that old building hardly anymore, or the newest of the 2, because it has electrical problems. Well, something has electrical problems, get them fixed right away because of the risk of fire or whatever, but you don't stop using a building because you have electrical or plumbing problems, you fix them. But as I sit here tonight, we're sitting here thinking of the farmers market, and I respect all those people who sent the letters that Debbie sent out today. A lot of them are friends of mine, they're people that I know well, and I respect their opinions. But I also sit here on behalf of taxpayers. All of us do. And if something we feel is just too many dollars for what's being done right now, what needs to be done. We could achieve all the goals for a lot less money. Then I think on behalf of taxpayers, we can't sign that letter that says we support what was shown to us, not just the general, what's in that reading there, but we have to go by what was shown to us. So I will not be able to support this, but I think they need to look at doing a reduced, and just because our letter of support doesn't come in doesn't mean they're going to stop cold. But it's a warning, I think, that that our council says, let's have another look before we spend that much money. Thank you. Okay, everybody's had a chance to speak on the motion. I'll let Councillor Thompson go since he made the motion.
So, thank you. First of all, I want to correct some information here. This is not a seasonal market. It runs 12 months of the year. People depend on this market. And we had Mr. Tebow here talking about people test driving businesses, doing side hustles. This is how people survive in Pictou County, especially newcomers and women. This is what this market's for. And I've been involved with a lot of community groups writing grants. And when you're writing a grant, it's a lot of creative writing. It's not an art. It's not a science. It's an art. Okay.
You got your doctorate.
I got my doctorate, but sometimes you scale back because the funding's just not there to do that moonshot. And maybe this is a moonshot. And maybe they'll only get $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. Maybe they have to temper their enthusiasm a bit. But this is the full Monty. If you had a magic wand, this is what we would get. If we can get the money from the federal government, the provincial government, wherever that money they're going to ask for is going to come from, we haven't committed another dime to this. And this letter's not going to commit us to anything. So I just, like, when we talk about this notion of New Glasgow, I don't want to support anything in New Glasgow. It's like a episode of The Simpsons, like Shelbyville versus Springfield. Like it's absolutely ludicrous to even comment that way. Up on my side of the harbour, where my district is, our service center's in Glasgow. That's where we go to shop. That's where we go to do things. And like, why wouldn't we support that? Just because it's in New Glasgow, maybe we shouldn't. Is that the idea? I just don't get that logic. But this is simply a letter of support. I've written many, many, many grant applications and proposals to governments. And all it is a letter of support. And their proposal is 7.1. There's contingency money in that because they have to put that in. And maybe they don't get the bells and whistles, but they need another building. You can't use that dome. And they're maxed out in the year-round space they have now. And we're supporting new entrepreneurs with this. This is what we're trying to build, and that place has graduated some really, really successful businesses. And I hear that there's one that she's been on Dragon's Den. I don't know if the episode's come out yet, and I don't know what the outcome is. But there's some really good ideas in there. And to argue against this is just, and I've had lots of phone calls, and they haven't been about, you shouldn't support this. It's like, why aren't you sending a letter of support? It's just a letter. You're spending a stamp in an envelope is what it is. Like, this is, I'm glad for Pictou that we didn't dither on the library in our support. We never even blinked. We just voted and said yes. We didn't say, oh, $10 million, that's too much money. We never said that. But for some reason, with this project, because it's in Shelbyville, this is what we get. So I just don't get it.
Okay, everybody's had a chance to speak, and the mover spoke last, so I'm going to call for the vote. All those in support of sending, all those in favor of sending a letter of support for the Glasgow Farmers Market, please raise your hand. 4. All those against, please raise your hand. Must have 8. Motion defeated. Okay, let's move on then to community announcements. Does anybody have any community announcements tonight? No community announcements? Councillor Dave Parker?
Thank you. On behalf of the Climate Change Committee, or more correctly, the Tree Planting Committee of the Climate Change Committee, Tree Planting Subcommittee, our current plan, although we have a lot of work to do on it yet, is to plant those trees on the 4th day of May, first Saturday in May. We are overwhelmed with applications, 5, 10, 20 acres or more. I've been trying to make contacts with a local forestry group to see if they would take on some of those, or if there were commercial planters available to take on some of those. Have not yet been successful, but almost all the ones that have applied are going to have to be turned down, because 5,000 trees goes about 5 acres. If we do it all on one person's land, maybe, or we might do it on 2, but we're oversubscribed by at least 5,000%. We could plant 100 acres if we had the time and the trees and the people power. Part of the problem is the last item, people power. Most of those who were commercial planters 5, 10, and 20 years ago, they've gotten old. If you've tried planting trees all day, every day, you'll find it is a job for the young. And they just don't have the, just like with the bus drivers earlier, they just don't have the people. So I don't know who's going to plant our trees. I suspect it's going to be Mexicans and Jamaicans in the future.
Not this year.
Not this year. But in order to get the workforce to carry out the jobs, they have to look to temporary farm workers. But anyway, getting way off track. May 4th. Further details to follow. Thank you.
May 4th, we don't know where yet. Okay, go ahead, Councillor McKeel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. So it's that time of year again, Go Green, Get Clean. District 3 will be doing their cleanup on April the 27th. And they'll be picking up supplies the Saturday before, which will be provided, such as, you know, your bags and gloves and all that stuff. And after the cleanup on the 27th that morning, there is going to be hot dogs and snacks at 1 p.m. at the fire hall to say thank you to everyone that participated. So get signed up and challenge other districts. Hopefully they can get Go Green and Get Clean too. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't sure whether it was Go Green, Get Clean, or the other way around. So I just thought if somebody else brings it up, I won't have to. Councillor Thompson?
There's a community meeting. It's more for the folks and residents in the Plymouth area, but there's a meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the Plymouth Community Center regarding plans for the new long-term care facility that's going to be located in Plymouth. So.
Okay, thank you. And Randy?
I don't know if anybody's following, but on Facebook about the Pictou County Lacrosse League. Okay, so
Couldn't help it all.
it got ramped up here last week, and anyway, Friday I met with the organizers of the league, and they're now going to be playing out of the Iron Moore Arena. At no time did we ever turn them down. It was just a misunderstanding on their part that a few things that had to be settled, and we met Friday and came to the agreement, so they're going to be playing over there, so a lot of kids are happy. So
yeah, that's excellent news, because it was getting bandied around a lot.
It was getting bandied around, and to defend Pictou and Westville, they're no different than the Ira Dalmore rink. As soon as our ice goes out, we lay everybody off, and there's nobody there, right? So we rely on volunteers and grant workers and things like that. So the same thing's going to happen here. So we're glad that we can provide our support.
I think we're all glad because it's, to see that it's one of the rinks that we support, in Thorburn, to be able to be the solution to this problem and allow a lot of kids to have the fun they're looking for, so that's all important.
And just to Councilor McKeel's point, District 10 is having a cleanup also, and it's on the 27th, and we all meet at the Crossroads Country Market at 9, and at 12:30 we have a barbecue there, so we've been doing this now for the last number of years, so hopefully other communities get out. I know after the first year, we got a lot that first year, and the second year it gets a little easier, then you go on to other areas, so. Anyway.
So
thank you.
April 27th, what was the date in your area?
27th.
Oh, okay, that is the right date then, yeah. I had written down the 24th by mistake. Sorry about that. Any other community announcements this evening? I did want to mention that at the Wellness Center this weekend is a home show, and also, what's it called, outdoor recreation, I think. It's I've been pushing in there for a long time for a fishing hunting show, and this is getting a little closer, I guess. They told me, oh, you're getting your fishing hunting. Well, then I saw it in the paper. It's recreation, but it is should be a good show, and I think some of our people are there. Is that right, Sue Ann? Who's there on behalf of our municipality?
We'll have a booth for the Switch program and as well as the internet program.
The internet.
So there's two booths.
And Switch, which used to be Pace.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so if you happen to get a chance in, you can go over and say hello to our folks there. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Dewar.
This is certainly a different kind of a community announcement. The Power Commission put a new pole in Hopewell at the intersection of the Trafalgar and Elgin Road, right in the village by the garage. So the other Sunday morning, they were there fixing everything. I stopped and I said, where's the light? It walked away. Somebody borrowed our light with no intention to bring it back, our street light. So I'm sending the message from the community that you can speak to McDonald and Black and see if we can get a street light back there. They'll know where it's at, but anyway. Thank you.
Somebody borrowed it.
Well, it's gone.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no further community announcements, I don't believe we have any motions of reconsideration. So we need a motion to go in camera to discuss that single issue there. Moved by Mary, seconded by Darla. That we go in camera. All those in favor? Okay, we'll have to ask our guests to leave early.